This is the James Cancer-Free World podcast. I'm Steve Wartenberg, and my co-host today is David Cohn. Dave is a gynecologic cancer surgeon, and he is also the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Medical Officer of the James, and Dave is a 17-year Pelotonia rider.
Thanks, Steve. Pelotonia was held just a few days ago, and you and I both were two of the thousands of riders and volunteers that make Pelotonia special, and that were part of this incredibly and emotional and life-changing bicycle ride that's raised more than $300 million for cancer research right here at the James. This research has made a huge difference here in Columbus, in the region, and beyond, all the way across the United States and the world, because we've led to new discoveries, new treatments, new drugs, clinical trials, and then screening programs that literally have saved and extended a lot of lives.
Over the past several months, after I've finished the regular podcast, I've asked my guests to tell me about their favorite Pelotonia memories. With the help of Dominic, the producer of this podcast, we've put these memories together for this special Pelotonia Memories episode. And who better to co-host than Dave, who is a leader here at the James and also a leader in the Pelotonia community.
Well, Steve, it's an honor. So our first memory today comes from my friend and colleague, Rob Baiocchi. Rob is a hematologist who specializes in treating patients with blood cancers, and his research focuses on studying aggressive lymphomas and complications after bone marrow transplantation.
With my primary mentor being Mike Caligiuri, I knew about the inception of Pelotonia before it existed. There was kind of an unspoken rule that everyone in his orbit would ride. And so it was kind of an automatic thing that once it became available, we jumped on board, and I've ridden every year since it started.
Were you a cyclist before, or was this new to you?
No, I don't have the attention span to be a cyclist. But I have a bike, and I made the investment. But I admit to only riding around the event, training and then riding in it.
Wait, I feel like it takes more attention to be a great scientist than to be a great cyclist.
You need to have your eyes on a lot of things when you're a scientist. And so it's good to be distracted sometimes. Cyclists doing one thing straight ahead. Oh, so not good at that.
You're riding along and you're thinking of solutions to scientific problems and you get distracted. Now, I also know that you don't ride alone, and no one rides alone, but you have family members you've ridden with.
Well, it's been really wonderful to see my family get involved. My daughter was involved working with Pelotonia as an organization when she was in college here, and she hopped on her bike for the first time when her grandmother had lung cancer. It was a very meaningful experience for all of us. My son jumped on his bike for the first time last year. He works in Ronnie Freud's lab and has become super excited about the cancer problem, and maybe he's headed in that direction. So those are very meaningful developments to see my own family kind of impacted by the event.
Is your son a college student?
Yes, he's a junior.
At Ohio State?
Yep.
And he might go into medicine?
We'll see. It's early still, but he seems to like what he's doing. Ronnie has introduced him to natural killer cells, and Nick he could follow a long tradition of NK cell biologist in medicine. We'll see.
Have you ridden with or seen some of your patients during or after Pelotonia?
Actually, yes. I can't name names, but one of the coolest moments. One of my patients had just finished treatment. Actually, no, they were in the midst of treatment, and I'm in the last mile, kind of grinding through it. And he zipped past me like I was standing still. And I knew it was him, and I caught up with him after the finish line because he beat me to it. But that was one of the coolest things to see a guy who was in the midst of a pretty toxic treatment out there just killing it and riding hard. And we had a nice celebration there that day. It was really cool. And he's cancer-free today.
So Dave, I have a feeling that your memories are very similar to Rob from talking to you in the past. Mike Caligiuri influenced you to ride. You've ridden with family members, and you've seen and ridden with patients over the years.
Yeah, the experience that Rob talked about is very similar to a lot of our staff and faculty that are here at the James. They're involved in some way They see their patients and their colleagues that are out with them as well. My story is that in 2009, when Pelotonia started, the year before that, Mike Caligiuri was talking to some of the individuals in the cancer program saying, we'd like you to, get a bike and ride your bike. And that was the beginning of my cycling career when he told me I was going to ride 100 miles. And I literally got a bike and rode 100 miles that year. And it's been a fabulous journey since that point in time that has included seeing patients. And as Rob said, there's nothing more inspirational than recognizing that a patient that's in the middle of treatment, that has just completed treatment, that's a survivor, can get on the bike and contribute. And that contribution is the financial contribution of fundraising and being an advocate and supporter, but also to do it under the adversity of knowing how hard cancer treatment can be. And that is inspirational to everybody. And then the last thing is about family. This year, I was fortunate to have my daughter and wife volunteering for Pelotonia, and my son and I rode the ride together. And it's a really special event. He gets fired up about it. He does his fundraising. He doesn't do any training, and then shows up and decides to ride 100 miles, which is always an adventure. But it's a really special experience to do it with friends and family.
Wow. And Mike Caligiuri still rides, and I saw him this year at the first rest stop, and he was riding with a family member, his daughter.
Yep.
So it's a beautiful circle.
It sure is. And again, Mike is a true inspiration to have started this event that's raised, as you said, more than $300 million for cancer research here at the Comprehensive Cancer Center and the James. And I'd say that, today in this environment of funding, Pelotonia allows us to do things that other institutions cannot do, and allows our scientists to be more competitive for the increasingly competitive environment of federal funding as well.
Yes, I agree. Our next memory comes from John Schaffner, who is someone a little bit outside the traditional James family and someone who Dave brought into the James and connected me with for a podcast that we did.
Yeah, John Schaffner is a remarkable individual that we brought on to be the director of executive and physician coaching. John was the director of coaching at The Ohio State University's Fisher College of Business, and we brought him in to be the coach in residence at the James. He leads a new program here, something that focuses on inspiring empathy and compassion in our physicians, which ultimately provide high quality care that leads to a fabulous experience overall. And as you're going to hear, John is very passionate also about Pelotonia.
I've ridden it twice. And just this last year was the second time. That's probably where my favorite memory is, because it just emphasizes what an idiot I am.
Oh, boy.
So
I can't wait for this one.
I did the 20, I think, which is the one that starts out in New Albany. Did it by myself, which it's always better when you do it with a cohort of folks. But I was also like, okay, can I get through 20? I consider myself in pretty good shape, but I haven't biked to and from work in a while. So anyhow, started out first. I think the first stop is 7 miles in, if I getting that right, and pretty much everybody passed me for the first 7 miles.
Okay.
Like old people, like kids. It was like I was dragging a cart behind me. And so I stopped. I expressed my frustration at one of the pit stops, and the guy was like, well, you've had your back brake on for the last 7 miles. And I was like, oh, thank goodness.
I thought you were going to say I was in the
just
worst,
me.
the hardest gear or something. But
No, I had my back brake on for the first
stuck?
7 miles.
It was just stuck?
dragging the whole time. And it was always loose on this bike. It was a commuter bike that I kind of used for going to and from. It wasn't a fancy kind of lightweight one. So he fixed it for me, and I finished the next 14 miles, feeling light as a feather.
That's impressive that you could ride 7 miles with one of your brakes clamped onto your
spite
tire.
can motivate me incredibly well, right? I was grouchy, and that was what was pushing me forward. I was like, there's no way that this is this hard this early on, because I had worked hard at making sure that I would be fine with it. So yeah, I was fueled by my spite.
Well, you made it.
I did.
Dave, once again, something that this person said brought back a memory from you. I remember you telling me you had something similar happen to you in an early ride at Pelotonia.
Yeah, as I said, John is a passionate supporter of Pelotonia. I didn't spill the beans in saying he became passionate because he realized that you don't have to ride with your brakes on. The first year of Pelotonia, my brother-in-law came in from Manhattan to ride and support Pelotonia, which was fabulous. And so he had done all of his training in Manhattan in a gym on a stationary bike, and we rented him a bike, and he fell off the back really quickly, not physically falling off the bike, but off the group. He was the last one, the SAG van, the one that picks up and people who aren't able to keep up, they hop into the van. He was right in front of the SAG van. And I went back and I said, "Hey, Chris, how you doing?" And he said, "I'm doing good." I said, "Hey, what gear are you in?" I'm watching his feet go super fast. And he said, "What are gears?" And that's when you realize that if you train indoors, there's no gears on your bike. So he had an interesting mechanical experience. We got him across the finish line, and it was a very proud moment for him.
So that's both memories are examples of how you don't have to be great cyclists to do Pelotonia, although you should learn a little bit about your bike. And you can get in with that 20-mile ride, and you don't have to be in super shape or a lot of patients, current and former patients who have some physical obstacles, start off at that 20, 25-mile ride.
Yeah, and so this year's ride was 24 miles. Basically, it sold out. So
yes,
they had to cap the number of people because that was the level of interest. I think that as Pelotonia has caught on and as there's the recognition that you don't have to be a cyclist clad in Lycra with special shoes, you can just be a person that likes to get on a bike and do something that's critically important for this community, which is to raise money for cancer research. And so 24 miles is doable. When you're in a crowd and you start at the chute at the beginning of the ride, you're carried for 23 and a half of those miles just by the adrenaline and excitement of the event. You've got to do a half a mile on your own, but after that, it's a fabulous experience.
Yeah, and I've also learned that if you're doing those shorter distances, that old bike you have in your garage that you haven't ridden in several years and is covered in cobwebs will work for those short distances.
Absolutely. So as we were talking about family, it's a reminder that Pelotonia is an event for the entire family. And our next guest is a perfect example of how the family can participate together. Marissa Bottoni is a scientist and a researcher in the oncology division of the College of Medicine. And her research focuses on how lifestyle choices like diet and exercise and smoking can impact and increase the risk of lung cancer.
You don't ride alone. This is a big family event. So describe who rides. How many Bottonis ride in Pelotonia?
Yeah, we all do now. We actually all rode this past year even. So my husband, Giorgio Bottoni, he rode the actual first year and has ridden all 15 years except for when he had shoulder surgery and he was virtual. So I'm also a 15-year rider, some virtual due to, whatever surgeries or health issues. But so both of us are actually 16-year riders, I should say. 16 now. So he actually rode the very first one with Dr. P.G. Porcu and the CTCL team and started that up because we had a family member being treated there. And also with my Caligiuri, we were at a dinner and talked about writing and started writing. So got involved very early on. I didn't start maybe till a couple years later, but like I said, I've either been virtual or written most of them. So then our daughters got involved maybe about 4 or 5 years after us. And
how many daughters?
Our 2 daughters, Anna Maria and Christina. And we were featured in the alumni, in last July issue of the alumni, OSU Alumni Magazine, which was really nice. But so and even this past year, they've all ridden and everybody's involved. We love it. We think it's
so the 4 of you ride together all the time?
Oh, well, we don't train and always ride together, but so we didn't always ride together because like the first year, so my husband was like doing the 100, he even did the 200, and then I started 25, 50, I took it easy. But there was one year where we all did 100, we all passed the 100-mile finish, so together. So, a couple times we passed it together, but the 100-mile finish, I think, was one time. Well, describe
that, because the finish is pretty emotional. What was that like? The combination of riding 100 miles and 4 of you coming across the line with people cheering you on. What was that like?
Oh, I would say that's one of the best moments of my life. Like my husband, I think he quoted in the article saying that's just right up there with weddings and, having grandkids. And for us, it was definitely an emotional moment. For me, it was a personal goal to finish 100 miles, and I didn't think I could do it. And I just know when I hit that last turn where you enter the slower the trail, I literally was like screaming, like, "Oh my gosh, we're almost done!" And I was exhausted. It was that wind. We had a lot of winds that day. It was a tough day, and people were like, "Is she okay?" And I'm like, "I'm just happy, I know, because we're almost done." And then I think we managed to all come together right for that last section, and it was an amazing feeling just to all cross together and have everybody cheering, and definitely right up there, one of the best moments in life.
What did the four of you do after you crossed that finish line?
Oh, we celebrated, and I think we got food and whatever, wine, beer, whatever they provided, and we definitely hung out a while and over there and took a lot of photos. And it was definitely. Oh, actually, one of our special friends who's a cancer survivor, and I give a plug to Nancy Wasson. She actually brought champagne. It was a tradition for her to bring champagne to the finish line for us. So we actually have a picture where we're toasting with champagne. That she brought. So that was really cool too.
So we've already talked about the family connection, but it's so strong and there are so many elements. So let's kind of keep talking about it because you have even more family connections to Pelotonia.
Yeah, and when you think about the finish line, as Marissa was describing, there are families that come out to support their family members who are riding, or families that are riding together, and it really is a special event. I think that's why, my son, my daughter, my wife have been involved in Pelotonia since the very beginning. And, my father died of cancer at the age of 52, and neither of my children had ever met him before. But taking the opportunity to use Pelotonia as a grounding time to think about family members and friends that have or who've died of cancer is something that really is special. My son, when we were talking on the ride this year, mentioned, my dad, and I think that that's what keeps him inspired. He's working towards, our ultimate goal of creating a cancer-free world. And when you can think about our own family members that have been affected, our friends who have been affected, I think that makes that a very poignant reminder about why this is such a critically important part of our community.
Yeah, and you'll see people as you ride, on the back of their shirts, it says, "I ride for," and it has their names. And just seeing that is emotional. And on the back of my shirt, I wrote for my mom, who passed away from cancer in 2020, our friend Brian, who passed away this past year. And you think about them as you ride, and that motivates you and reminds you of why you're here.
Yeah. And as Marissa said, last year was windy, this year was windy, but a wind in your face is nothing compared to what happens to cancer patients when they're going through treatment. And I think that that's the important reminder. You can get through whatever it is that you are setting out to do. You might not think you can do it, but the wind is behind you when you think about the people that have gotten through what they've done.
They are our wind.
They are wind.
Behind our, what is the phrase?
Wind behind our sails.
Okay.
I'm not going to make you sing it.
Okay. Okay.
And I think that I spoke incorrectly. It is the wind beneath our wings and not our sails. But either way, I'm not going to make you sing it.
Everyone is happy about that. And in recent years, Pelotonia has added something new, a gravel ride. And our next guest is Sammy Rundo, a James certified child life specialist and a first-time Pelotonia gravel rider, not at this most recent Pelotonia, but 2 Pelotonias ago.
Yeah, Sammy is a remarkable person. We started a child life specialist program at the James when we began our Proton facility, where we know the collaboration with Nationwide Children's allows us to have children in our building, and they've got very special needs that Sammy and the other child life specialists are able to care for. So when you think about what Sammy and the other child life specialists does, it allows for holistic care of all of the patients that turn to us for their cancer care.
My favorite Pelotonia memory is this year was my first year, and I did gravel day. It is phenomenal. I did the camp out the night before, and on ride day, it was beautiful. And while riding, kind of towards the end, I look over and there's a woman setting up a yard sale, and I decided, I love yard sales. What am I talking about? Like, thrifting's great. Let's stop here. And just in that time, started speaking with her. She had no idea kind of what this race was. There's lots of rides out in that county. And then she continued to share like how cancer has impacted her life. And to learn what we were doing and what we were raising money for, to hear her say thank you, and also thank you for sharing your story with me. It was kind of a beautiful moment where the least expected kind of moment.
Yeah, that is kind
great.
of amazing.
It was so great.
So unexpected. And did you buy anything at the yard sale?
I didn't, because I didn't have any cash on me, but now I know.
Oh, so next year?
Next year, Pelotonia 2025. I'll be doing Gravel Day, maybe the trail run, because they've added some other cool features to Gravel Day. Yeah, I definitely now know carry cash.
What was that like for you? I always like to ask people who've on your first Pelotonia. It's a little unexpected, the emotions and the camaraderie and
Yeah.
What was that like emotionally?
It was really a little overwhelming, honestly, to see that many people. And I'm going to get a little emotional because I have a family member who was recently diagnosed. And as I'm writing names on my leg, because I'm like, oh my gosh, can I really ride this far? And the thing is, yes, you can. You kind of run out of leg room. And you're like, wow, there's that many people impacted either in my life or friends' lives that you're riding for that you remember. And it's really beautiful.
Now, Dave, you've done Gravel Day both years. What was it like? How was it different?
Gravel Day is a very different vibe than, ride weekend. So it is fewer people. There's not a lot of pavement. It is on farming roads that are gravel. And so that's very different as well. It is steep. It's very low key. So it is, you go out on your own, you do your own thing, and you have a very joyous day out there. It has been 2 of my favorite days on my bike, and I really look forward to doing this in October.
It sounds like it's a very much connection with nature.
Yeah, I think that if you take cycling and you strip off all the things that I said, you don't have to have a nice bike, you don't have to wear Lycra, you can do anything you want on Gravel Day as long as you've got a durable bike that can handle a little bit of rough road. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. It doesn't matter if you know anybody out there. You show up and you have a great day on the bike. And then this year's quite unique because, as Sammy just said, they're adding a gravel hike, a gravel run, a gravel walk, a gravel, whatever you want to do on a trail down in the Nelsonville area, which is going to be special.
Yeah, it's a loop that I forget. Joe Apgar was on from Pelotonia, and he told us, I forget, it might be 2 or 2.5 miles around, and you can do it as many times as you want during a specific time period.
That's exactly
and
right.
You can walk, hike, run, however you want to do, and there'll be a rest stop on it.
And there'll be a rest stop. That's exactly right.
So they take care of people.
They do.
Dave, fill us in on our next guest.
So our next guest is Dr. Deb Sundi. Deb is a urologist that specializes in the treatment of bladder cancer, and he's a very advanced surgeon and a very big supporter of Pelotonia.
There's not one single moment, but for me, every time I ride, there are kind of two moments where I will get an incredible surge. And one
a surge of emotion,
surge of adrenaline, surge of energy, a surge of everything, where I am truly overwhelmed by the moment. One is at the start line when you ride in and just crossing. I mean, the energy and the motion at that moment is incredible. And every time I do it, I it's a little less new, but it's no less powerful. And the other moment, there's not a distinct mile stop or something, but what I find is that there's at least one other time, probably on the second half of the ride, somewhere between, let's say, but sometime, between mile 50 and 100. Where, I'm about to bonk. I just have, I've got, it seems like not a lot in the tank, but there might be a small group of people ringing bells with signs, cheering you on, or it might be a large group of people. And I'll get that similar surge of adrenaline, energy, hope, inspiration, emotion. and it carries me through. And that to me is everything. And I get that every single time. I love it.
It is amazing that I feel the same thing, that whether it's a group that have cheerleaders, actual cheerleaders from a high school, or just one person sitting in front of their house with a sign, that you'd think even after all these years it wouldn't mean so much, but it does every single time.
It does. It means everything. And so, riding Pelotonia is just one of the best things, you can do, that anyone can do. It's amazing. Yeah.
You must see signs that say, "Thank you, James Doctors," and you're a James Doctor. So it's like, it's applause to what you do on a daily basis.
Oh, it really keeps us going. Yeah, we love those.
So the thread that's running through this is the connection you and all the other members of the James teams, the physicians, the PhDs, the therapists, the specialists, the way Pelotonia connects you with the larger community around you as you're riding at the beginning and the end. It seems like that's a very special thing that I can feel as I've gotten to know all of you.
Yeah. And so I would say that the Pelotonia community is remarkable. And the Pelotonia community is, as you described, it is the physicians at the James. And we've made a commitment as a group to be involved in Pelotonia, to register. Because if we are not committed, how can we go out and ask the general community to contribute as well? And it's the scientists, it's the learners that are in the laboratories, that are in our clinics as well, the next generation. It is the individuals that are funded by Pelotonia. So keeping in mind that we've got Pelotonia scholars, which are literally the next generation of scientists.
Hundreds of them.
Hundreds of them. I mean, that's our breeding ground for creating world-class science right here at the Comprehensive Cancer Center in the James. And then you also have all the other parts and pieces, which is the community that Dr. Sundi just talked about, that are out on the roads, that are ringing bells and cheering and holding signs. It's that level of general community that inspires people to keep on going and year after year to come back to Pelotonia.
Dave, I agree. And I think what's made Pelotonia so successful is that connection between the James team and the community, that we see how dedicated you are, you see how dedicated we are, and that combination has led to 300 plus million and a lot of emotions.
Yep, absolutely. And so, one part that we haven't talked about yet is our volunteers. And the next story we're going to hear about is from Laura Shatner, and she's a perfect example of this. She's a volunteer here at the James. She works with patients that are undergoing chemotherapy treatment, and she herself was diagnosed with cancer and treated here at the James. And she first got involved with Pelotonia as a volunteer, and then finally decided to ride.
Oh, my favorite Pelotonia memory. Well, I have two. 1 year I rode, and we were I only rode 25, but I'm not a cyclist, so 25 was a lot for me. And when we were riding out in the country, there was a big sign that said free beer.
Okay.
So, that might be one of mine, but actually I have three.
Wait, did you stop and get a free beer?
Well, I'm not going to confirm or deny whether or not we stopped and got one.
You
But
can carry it to the end.
yeah, and they fit in the cup holder
Exactly.
on
There
your
you
bike.
go. Okay.
So that was one. Another one, I volunteered at the opening ceremonies, and I was put at a water station. Now, at the opening ceremonies, everybody's having a great time. Nobody wants to come by for water. So if I was trying to get people to come over and offer them free water, of course, but in order to get the water, the customer had to tell me a joke.
Oh.
And so that just, that was a trigger for conversation. And a lot of people say, I don't have a joke. Well, you should always have a joke. You should have a pocket joke, right? Do you have a pocket joke?
I think I remember you doing this because I always drink a lot of water that night before because I think you may have asked me and I cannot remember the joke.
Okay.
A cyclist and a
oncologist
walk into a bar.
Exactly. And what happens?
But did you ride after your diagnosis and treatment?
I did.
And what was that like? Because I know a lot of people have talked about the emotions of that.
It is very emotional. And the signs along the way that say, you riding raised funds to save my wife, or thank you for riding, thank you for everything you do. And I was riding just to raise more money so more people can benefit from it, and just to see the people who were so appreciative of the riders, even though I had just, finished treatment. I finished treatment in August, and I was riding in August. So,
Wow.
yeah.
And so riding 25 miles is a lot for someone just
right.
off treatment for, lymphoma?
Yes, it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Mm-hmm.
And is it also a way to sort of celebrate the end of your treatment and say, I'm going to get my life back as best I can?
100%. And that's what it was. And it's always been emotional at the finish line, regardless of a diagnosis or not. And like you, Steve, my husband has been riding in Pelotonia since its inception. And every time he crosses the finish line, I would always be there. And the second year I rode, not the second year, the second time I rode, it happened to be when I was 5 years cancer-free. And unbeknownst to me, my daughter had organized all of my friends and family to be at the finish line. And talk about emotional. That was crazy emotional because everybody was so happy and celebrating. And
so they surprised
you?
They
surprised me at the finish line.
Walk us through your facial expression as you crossed the finish line and saw all these people there with signs and love for you.
Exactly. It was signs and an inflatable T-Rex.
Oh, wow.
That was my sister-in-law. And
because you and T-Rex are the most powerful people on earth.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And just a lot of love and support and happiness and gratitude for the James, for the people that work at the James, for the amazing things that go on here, for the research and the doctors and everybody who is so supportive of all the patients here.
You know, that reminds me, one of the greatest things when you cross the finish line is observing all these family moments that she's talking about. You'll see a group of people waiting for someone and hugging them and having signs and cheering and crying. And you get to see that. And sometimes you can even go over and talk to them because everyone will talk to you at Pelotonia.
Yeah, I think that's a special part of it is that whether you're on the road riding or at the finish line, people want to share their stories.
Yeah.
And again, we're in a unique position of being healthcare providers that can both absorb that and then understand it at a different level. But if you're a patient, if you have never been diagnosed with cancer or never heard of cancer, hearing the inspirational stories that people come with is just remarkable, and everyone wants to share them.
So to finish up, Dave, why don't we each describe a memory or two from this most recent 17th Pelotonia? Would you like to go first?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Year 17 was as unique and special as any other. I just want to say that every year is different. And you start at the same place, you finish at the same place, but that journey is very individual. And so I had the honor, as I said, of riding with my son. So having many hours one-on-one with him was great. I did my best to slow him down unsuccessfully.
Because he hadn't trained, so you were worried about his last 20 miles.
As a 22-year-old, you've got powers that I don't have anymore. So that was really special right there. But I think one of the really special things is we have a new chief executive officer and director of the Cancer Center at the James, and that's Dr. Kim Rathmel. Kim came here in no small part because of the community, and that's not just the Pelotonia community, but the community within Columbus and beyond that really looks to the James for their cancer care and trust us with helping more patients than we could ever imagine. And so watching Dr. Rathmel experience her first Pelotonia on Friday evening and then riding on Saturday was something which is really unique. So anytime that somebody has the opportunity to do this for the first time, you can see the wonder that they have, the inspiration, the emotion, as you heard all of our riders and their volunteers describe, was really special to see through the eyes of someone who's brand new as a leader to this organization.
That's true. You can describe to someone what their first Pelotonia will be like, but you can't really capture fully what it's going to be like.
Until you do it.
Yeah. And so my memories, actually, I have a little routine when I register on Friday. I met a couple many years ago. Their son was being treated at the James, and I had a bone marrow transplant, and I got to follow him through the whole process and write about it for Pelotonia and got to be very close with the family and have kept in touch, and they volunteer every year at the registration tent. So I always go to their spot on the registration table and they register me. And that's good luck for me. And then after I register and talk to them and get a picture, I walk over to where the bikes are, and the lead volunteer there is someone I know and have known for 15 years, and she's a patient here at the James, and she's had cancer 3 or 4 times and has this amazing attitude, and you can tell that she knows what she's doing. She just runs things. People come up, she's calm, and she said, "Up, go this, bring this truck here, bring this truck there," and she moves all our bikes and luggage, and they're always where they're supposed to be. And so seeing them every year just starts Pelotonia off for me in the right way.
You know, Steve, that's a great example of you're mentioning people that come back year after year as volunteers, as riders, as contributors as well. And that's what makes this community so very special. It's an emotional experience, but it's just critically important to keep in mind that we do this because it allows 100% of the dollars that are raised by Pelotonia to go to cancer research. And what that means is that we have fewer people that are diagnosed with cancer, fewer people that die of cancer, and fewer people that suffer with cancer as well. And that's what this is all about.
Okay. So we've been through 17 years, 18's coming up.
Let's do it.
All right. I'll see you before then, but I'll see you riding next year as well.
Got it.
This podcast is brought to you by the Ohio State University Comprehensive Cancer Center, Arthur G. James Cancer Hospital, and Richard J. Solove Research Institute. For more information, check out our website, cancer.osu.edu.